Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mrs. Rachel Pittman.
Thank you, and thank you, Onyinye, for having me at the Purple Ball to celebrate International Women's Day. While I know this is a virtual event, I can still feel the power of being in a room with a strong group of incredible women and men who want to advance gender equality and make the world better for future generations. As you just heard today, I am fortunate to lead the United Nations Association of the USA, or UNA USA, which is a grassroots movement of Americans who support the vital work of the United Nations, its agencies, and the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. In 2019, I became the first female and first African-American executive director of UNA USA, which our organization has been in existence for more than 75 years. Now, why it took my organization so long to put someone like me in this position, I don't know. But I do know that we're not afraid of female leaders. Former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was a founding member of UNA USA and chairwoman of the board. She launched many UNA USA chapters across the country after shepherding the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights to completion in 1948. Furthermore, in my nearly 6 years at UNA USA, all the elected National Council chairs have been women, one white, one Black, and now one Latinx. And many of our UNA USA chapters are led by women. Yet, I'm still the first to lead my organization. Like several of you, it's unfortunate to be the first or the only, but it's something that I've dealt with throughout my life. I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, which is not small, but a southern city in the United States in the early 80s, where it was still very segregated by race, especially by neighborhoods and schools. In middle school, my parents placed my sister and me in a prestigious private girls' school, but we were the first Black children ever to attend. I'm sure you can guess how that turned out. We faced racist incidents from classmates and teachers. After 2 years, my parents pulled me out and put me back in public school. In high school, I was one of a few Black children in the honors track. There was always pressure to succeed because our society portrays African Americans as not good enough or smart enough, especially African American women. However, through the love of my parents and my own perseverance, I excelled as a student and went on to receive my bachelor's degree in international business and MBA. Fast forward to my professional life, I have worked in several organizations as the only Black director on senior leadership teams, and to this day, I have never had a person of color as a supervisor. I'm not complaining because I am proud of my accomplishments and ability to navigate the world as the only or one of few. But we all know that it would have been more beneficial to have had someone who looked like me to provide guidance or just have my back. For that reason, I make it my mission to mentor and provide opportunities for those coming up behind me. For me, this means not only participating in formal mentoring programs, but making myself available to young colleagues who want to discuss personal or professional issues, encouraging young women to take on leadership positions, joining intergenerational networking groups, and participating on panel discussions as the only female or person of color to provide representation. I understand that my presence as the only one or one of few is a step in forever changing the world, how the world values Black women. It reinforces the fact that I and others like me deserve to have a seat at the table and have my voice heard. I'm not successful in changing minds every time, but I did have a Black female successor at one organization, and I was not the last Black child at that private girls' school. I acknowledge that it will take time and effort to remove the world's first and only from a woman's history. While I am no Vice President Kamala Harris, I do understand the significance of my journey because it is part of a collective story of the advancement of women, especially women of color in the United States and around the world. That is why when Vice President Harris said in her acceptance speech, "I may not be the first woman to hold this office, but I won't be the last," we all understood in that moment the journey for gender equality and racial equity does not stop with her. It does not stop with me or any other first or seconds or thirds. We must continue to build on progress until we no longer must fight for our dignity, our rights. There is a global effort to specifically address gender equality for every community in every corner of the world. It's the fifth goal in a list of 17 global goals called the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs for short. In case you aren't familiar, these goals were historically adopted by all of the UN's 193 member nations in 2015, with the aim to achieve them by the year 2030. The global goals hold the power to transform our world, to end poverty, fight inequality, protect the planet, and drive economic growth and prosperity. It's important to note that the SDGs are not a to-do list for UN member states alone. Yes, while governments are the drivers in overhauling policies and allocating major funds towards the advancement of the SDGs, they are to be solved by all of us. Unfortunately, the journey to realize an equal future will be more challenging because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has largely interrupted many of the gains on gender equality over the past 25 years. A 2020 report by UN Women showed that the COVID-19 pandemic is causing a resurgence in extreme poverty, affecting women the most. By 2021, around 435 million women and girls will be living on less than $1.20 a day, including 47 million pushed into poverty as a result of COVID-19. Globally, women have a 27% higher risk than men of facing severe food insecurity. Women healthcare workers on the front lines of COVID-19 pandemic are at increased risk of exposure to the virus. School closures are likely to increase gender gaps in education. More than 11 million girls were at risk of not returning to school in 2020. Women and girls face an increased risk of sexual and physical violence by an intimate partner due to the lockdown and confinement measures. These realities probably aren't based on stories you haven't heard, but the list of gender equality goes on. The world has lost momentum in the fight for gender equality, but that's not where the story ends. We can all play a role in shifting course to accelerate progress. At the United Nations Association of the USA, we believe in global goals local leadership, which means we address issues in our local communities while bolstering American support for global initiatives. This includes anything from signing up petitions, hosting public events, volunteering at charitable organizations, meeting with leaders, government leaders, and forming partnerships with like-minded organizations. While the pandemic has shifted the way we activate on the gender equality movement, it has not slowed our ability to make change. At UNA-UXA, for example, while virtually, we are still hosting robust mentoring programs that bring together young professionals and leaders to discuss career development and leadership. We sent digital petitions to urge our members of Congress to provide US funding for the UN's Population Fund, which is a UN sexual and reproductive health agency. For International Women's Day and Women's History Month, we're sending more digital petitions to members of Congress to encourage more support for gender equity in laws and policies. We're doing simple things like hosting coffee chats on women in politics to encourage more female participation in local and state governments. And next week, we're sending a delegation to the virtual UN Women's 65th session on the Commission on the Status of Women to engage other gender advocates and to discuss progress and gaps in promoting women's rights, review the status of women around the world, and shape global standards on gender equality. While these are just a few examples, it shows you that there are several ways that one can get involved to change the trajectory of equality and equity for women and girls. As a participant in today's event, I encourage you to join this movement because there is so much to be done. For example, just think about ways you can support more women to run for office so policies that affect women and girls can be overhauled or created. Use your networks to place women in leadership positions at various organizations and in government. Work with leaders to implement a robust diversity, equity, and inclusion program in their place of business so there is a pathway for women at all levels. Create more mentoring programs to help girls and young women navigate a world still plagued by gender disparity. Invest in programs that address issues affecting women and girls at a higher rate, such as poverty, hunger, sexual and reproductive health, jobs and education, to name a few. And don't forget to seek male allies. Their participation and support are critical to our movement. As you know, women's rights are humans' rights. Yet today, there are still pressing human rights challenges that women and girls continue to face in schools, in the workplace, at home, and beyond. Therefore, we must continue to bring women and diverse voices to all levels of society for us to grow as a nation and as a world. If we are consistent on these actions, along with so many others, we will have a chance to achieve gender equality and the other global goals by 2030. I just want to thank you all. Thank you once again for allowing me to be a part of this incredible moment. And hopefully one day I'll be able to join you in person at the next Purple Ball. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachel. And yes, to you being able to join us in person. I'm hoping that next year we can have a global event. It might not be in Nigeria, maybe another country, but hopefully I like to think big, you know, we can do this. But Rachel, this is not on the agenda, and Margaret, I hope you will forgive me. I know Rachel might not stay with us till the end. I wanted to give an audience member a chance to ask a question. Rachel, are you okay answering one question?
Yes.
Awesome. Who's the brave person? First person to unmute yourself and speak. Oh, Mr. Samuel, go ahead. Thank you for raising your hand.
Mrs. Rachel, I mean, your comment is quite inspiring, you know, and I really want to say that here in Africa, most women will want to take inspiration from your testimony. Again, of course, here in Africa, our tradition here is tailored in a pattern, in a way that really achieving gender equality will really be an issue. There's the plague of ignorance, there's the plague of poverty, there's the plague of, you know, the superiority of the man to the woman. For movement like you, I really want to know some practical measures that organizations, you know, like your type, we really want to take, you know, in tackling, you know, all of these encumbrances, you know, that are there for ensuring gender equality, you know, here in Africa.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. And the different measures, I mean, we have to look first starting locally, because we believe that you start local and you help change your communities, and it helps others to learn from your experiences, and it can help to grow globally. It's interesting that people think that the US does not have these issues. We still have issues regarding education equality, poverty issues, hunger. That may not be as you know, magnitude, but we still have these issues here. And that's what I like about the Sustainable Development Goals, because it's not for us to help people in other countries. It's also for us to deal with our issues here as well. So we need to come together as a global community to solve these issues, because just because one country gets a little bit better, that does not help the world. We need all women to have equality. We need all women to have access to leadership, to have access to fair education and to health. So we just take that message and try to communicate that we have to work together. We have to share our experiences that could help others. There are things that you are doing in your country that we can learn from, and vice versa. So it's something that has to be done together. It's not just a one-way street, as we say here.
Correct. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you, Mr. Samuel, for asking that question. Very important question.